This is NDTV. And you're watching NDTV Hindu.
After India lashes out, the Indian scientist who wrote the superbug report says the British badly misquoted him.
Have they tampered with your report? Have they, the interpretation part, have they changed, have they added without your knowledge?
No, I'm not in a position to tell. Please don't disturb.
Supreme Court grants 6 weeks to the state to respond to the suggestion of restricting the annual Jallikattu to only 2 months. Big news, the ship carrying around 500 Lankan Tamils is being escorted into the military harbour in Canada. It's a fall from grace for Sri Lanka's war hero Sarat Fonseca now faces the prospect of being stripped of his army honours as well. BlackBerry reportedly relents to at least one encrypted service, but government sources not happy. From expendables to PP Live, a quick look at all the new releases this Friday.
Hoshala, hoshala, kadalil lali lali kete.
Well, those are the top stories we're tracking at this hour. We'll get you more details about all of them, but let's have a look at what's making headlines across India. The Prime Minister and Sonia Gandhi now step into the Commonwealth crisis. Even the Cabinet Secretary chairs a meeting on the Games. A teenager and a 5-year-old man killed after violence escalates during Ramzan in Kashmir. 61 trucks loaded with explosives mysteriously disappear in Madhya Pradesh. Police begin investigations. Teacher beats up student for not paying just 2 rupees for Independence Day celebrations. Well, that India is angry has been made out by many political leaders, including Jayanti Natarajan. The issue has reverberated in Parliament as well. Now, this after a medical journal report traced a drug-resistant superbug to India and named it New Delhi Metallo-1. The medical fraternity has hit out at the study and pointed to a conflict of interest, as the study was funded by 2 pharma companies. Now, reports suggest the Chennai-based author of the report, Karthikeyan Kumaraswamy, who did that paper, disassociated himself from parts of it. We'll be getting you that in a bit. It also says that the man who edited the report added many interpretations, particularly related to the last paragraph that warns against elective surgeries in India. Now, while the report, the controversial report on the superbug that advises people to avoid India for elective surgeries has created a furore, the Chennai-based lead researcher Karthikeyan Kumaraswamy says he's too confused. Speaking to NDTV's Sam Daniel, he, along with his supervisor, today denied that they ever stated this directly, as is being construed in various sections of the press.
Please go and ask her. I'm too confused.
No, but you have been.
But have they tampered with your report? Have they, the interpretation part, have they changed, have they added without your knowledge?
No, I'm not in a position to tell. Please don't disturb.
There are reports that the interpretation part of that particular report on the controversial bug was done without the consent or knowledge of Mr. Karthikeyan. How do you respond to that?
He did not have a clear understanding of that part that was given to him, sent as a mail.
So the alarm, the advice asking people to avoid elective surgeries in India is actually wrong.
I think Karthikeyan did not have the authority to comment on that. So he did not have any thinking on that.
So the implication, what the report says, that is actually not correct. Because that's the thing which has spread alarm across the country, asking people not to go to India for elective surgeries.
Basically, the chances of that being in any other place is there, but since it was detected in more numbers over here, that a comment had been made. But Karthikeyan had nothing as his opinion in that. He did not give much thought to that. His whole focus was on the research.
And this naming of the bacteria as after New Delhi.
Geographical nomenclature, which is done for many of the metallo-beta-lactamase genes.
Is that a common
Which has been
practice?
done.
Because many...
It is a very common practice which has been done earlier for these chains based on the geographic location.
And how do you respond to some reports that there could be conflict of interest also, because this was funded by the European Union and some companies which could have actually conflict of interest?
Comments. No comments.
And lastly, you said this bacteria was also found in hospitals in Chennai. Is it also equally important to make sure that this does not affect more patients in the country or in this part of the city?
Yeah, any such finding, we just definitely we bring this awareness ultimately to help clinicians treat patients better.
Should we concentrate on that now?
Yes, that is where we have to put our focus on.
Well, certainly that seems to have opened a can of worms about how pharma companies are leveraging their connections to bring out false reports. Now, that issue will, of course, continue to rage on, but let's get back to news from the state itself. The Supreme Court today granted 6 weeks to Tamil Nadu to respond to the court's suggestion of restricting the annual Jallikattu festival to only 2 months. Just recently, Environment Minister Jairam Ramesh hinted at banning the sport. Public opinion has also been divided on this. Animal rights activists call it barbaric, while those in favour of it say it's a display of valour and is a representation of Tamil culture. Tamil Nadu today made a plea that it wants more time to respond to the suggestion, and the court agreed. The apex court had earlier suggested that Jallikattu could be conducted for 2 months instead of the present 5 and had sought Tamil Nadu's response. Well, General Sarath Fonseca in Sri Lanka is in big trouble. Now, a court-martial has found the former Sri Lankan Armed Forces chief guilty of engaging in politics while on active service. General Fonseca would be stripped of his rank and medals once the government ratifies the decision, which seems likely given the fact that his staunch opponent Mahinda Rajapakse is the president. He has been detained by authorities after January's presidential election when he failed to oust President Mahinda Rajapakse. Those were the charges against him, though. General Fonseca also faces a second court-martial and 3 civilian trials. Officials have publicly accused the 59-year-old of plotting coups and killings, but he says the allegations are politically motivated. Only last year he was hailed as a war hero by Sri Lanka's majority Sinhalese community, but fell out after deciding to contest against Mahinda Rajapakse. Fonseca was an integral part of Rajapakse's war machinery. And also we were joined by senior journalist S. Murari of the Hindu over the phone line to give us his perspective.
After the defeat of the LTTE, Sarath Fonseca was sidelined, and he was credited with the defeat, but Fonseca also claimed credit for that. And after the defeat, in July 2009, he was made Chief of Defence Staff, which is a sinecure post. And Fonseca saw it as such, and he resigned in November 2009 and announced his decision to contest the elections in January 2010. We have to note that he contested as a common candidate of the opposition. So the government allegation is that before he decided to contest the election, he must have contacted the opposition candidates and opposition leaders, and that's how it came about. There could be substance in it, but more serious is the second court-martial, where he faces charges of corruption. And I don't know whether he has been charged with coup and all that, but definitely there is a charge of corruption in that he gave massive arms contract to a U.S. firm in which his son had a stake. So this is going to be rather serious.
Right, breaking news coming in. Those are the visuals on your screen. The MV Sunsea carrying nearly 500 Tamil migrants has docked at the Canadian Naval Base at Esquimalt. 2 naval tugboats that you see on your screen ferried the 59-meter Thion cargo ship into the base on Vancouver Island. Just recently, in fact, just around half an hour back, that ship on your screens was escorted by 2 naval warships to Esquimalt. Now, around 490 passengers, all seeking refuge protection in Canada, are on board that ship. The officers and other officials don surgical masks and gloves. In fact, those visuals will be getting you in a bit, but they don gloves before boarding the ship, in light of reports that there may be passengers with infectious diseases on board. Some reports indicate several passengers may be infected with even tuberculosis. That's right, some passengers, 500 of them who undertaken a 2-month voyage across the Pacific, might be infected with tuberculosis as well. All of them have escaped Sri Lanka. Officials have erected large stops to hide passengers from the media, as 4 buses and several ambulances waited to transport the ship's passengers to nearby hospitals and prisons. Now, they are believed to be Tamils from Sri Lanka who left their homeland in May aboard this ship. The migrants are expected to be transported about 4 buses. Let's just remind you, that's the ship on your screens right there. That's the MV Sunsea, escorted by 2 naval warships of Canada. These are visuals coming to you exclusively here on NDTV Hindu. The fate of 500 passengers, though, still hangs in the balance. Not many are likely to get refuge status or even asylum. Now, women and little children are on board this ship. Women, in fact, all of them would be taken to a care center, to a hospital. In fact, in Victoria, afterwards, they will be taken for questioning. A large number of sick people are expected to be on board. In fact, reports also suggest one person on board may be dead. His corpse is still on that ship. Yes, that's right. One person on that ship may be dead and his corpse may still be there on that ship. Now, the hospital has also brought in extra personnel to help treat the passengers. That's the big story breaking here right now. The ship has docked at Eskimol. That's the Canadian naval port. That's the ship on your screens carrying 500 Sri Lankan Tamils escaping Sri Lanka. Perhaps a slap on the face of Mahinda Rajapakse, who claims to be doing enough to rehabilitate internally displaced Tamils in Sri Lanka. An example here that not all is well in the island nation. 500 people fleeing the island, including women and infants on top of that ship. Now, in fact, let's now tell you about the sequence of events that unfolded. Let's take a look. Here's the first one. The sequence of events. A military boat, in fact, before this, escorted the ship. This boat left the harbor to escort the ship back. That's there on your screens, a military patrol boat, which was there. Then, of course, a view from the sky. That's where these asylum seekers will be taken to. Tents have been erected, especially to screen the Lankan Tamils. As we told you, many of them might be infected with tuberculosis because of the perilous journey that they've undertaken. They might be put into custody for questioning. Also, these are the tents, a hawk's eye view of where these Lankan Tamils will be put for questioning and medical screening. Now, here's the third one. In fact, one of the 5 ships, 2 that you saw before. This is the third ship that left Eskimol to escort the ship back to safety. Also, flying instructions were given. No aircraft was allowed to fly over the ship. All aircraft were in fact told to keep an altitude of 2,000 feet so as to prevent any untoward incidents from happening. We'll be on top of that story, tracking it every bit through the night as it develops. Well, that's the big story, a human tragedy unfolding. In fact, a slap on the face of Mahinda Rajapakse, who claims to be doing enough, getting aid from India. All the assurances that the Tamil Nadu Chief Minister has been getting from the centre seems to have come to naught with this shameful incident. 500 refugees on board a ship, including young children, infants, women who are on board the ship. One person is in fact even believed to be dead. More reports, of course, will keep coming in. Let's just tell you, not long while back, this ship has docked, and we'll be tracking it as and when the story develops. Now, let's move on. The railway police have arrested 4 biscuit bandits when they were trying to rob a man of his wallet and ring at the Chennai Central Station. The man, in fact, immediately raised an alarm, alerting the patrolling officers. On interrogation, the gang hailing from West Bengal revealed that they had been active on the Pune-Kanyakumari route for the last 2 years. Now, this kind of crime are on the rise. Both of them have been lodged in Pural prison. And joining us now live on the show is KC Mahali. He's the Inspector General of the Railway Police. Welcome to the show, sir. Of course, could you tell us about how these biscuit bandits have been operating, given the fact this is not an isolated case, something that even Chennai Central keeps advertising about on its screen, but incidents keep on happening. How do these people function? Please go on, sir.
The interstate doping gang, they used to travel in the train. Whenever they will be traveling in the train, first they will make ensure that with their co-passenger they will be more friendly. So when they become more friendly to them, they will be serving tea, they will be serving water, and they will be serving coffee to them. And whenever they will be serving tea and coffee, they will make the powder of these pills, and they will mix up with the tea, coffee, or with water. mineral water. Then they will give them. When they will be in deep sleep, their modus operandi is to remove the chains, rings, as well as money and all other valuables. After that they will escape. They have been operating in Mumbai-Kanyakumari Express, and our special team, Railway Police special team, they have been investigating this case for quite some time. Yesterday evening in the Central Railway Station, they arrested them.
No, Mr. Mahali, of course, what you say is taken, but we also know the fact that many cases remain unsolved, and in fact cases proliferate because of the overlapping of the jurisdiction between you and the police. Do you think that's a big impediment in solving crimes or preventing them from happening, such as these?
In this regard, law is very clear. Here, if any passenger has been robbed or he has lost any of his belonging, immediately he can prepare a complaint to any police station or to any police personnel. When the complaint is received by the policeman, immediately case will be registered. We will not consider about the jurisdiction, whatever may be the jurisdiction. First, we will obtain the complaint from the complainant, register the FIR. After registering the FIR, then we will go for the investigation. In course of investigation, whenever we come to know that this occurrence has occurred in such and such place, in that place the FIR can be transferred. Or otherwise, if it has occurred in the same jurisdiction, the investigation will be taken up by the jurisdiction police officer, and they will that is their duty to recover the property.
Right, Mr. Mahali. But sir, it's been a week since you, of course, took over as the Inspector General. Now, what are your strategies to tackle and bring down the crime rate, especially when it comes to tackling crime?
Whenever any passenger is traveling in any train, their safety has to be ensured. So, my objective and my work and our whole government railway police, our work is to ensure the safe journey of the passenger. Whenever they are traveling in that train, they should not be robbed, there should not be any theft, or there should not be any lifting of baggage or chain snatching. This preventive aspect, we ensure it. First, after ensuring the preventive aspect, if there will be any commission of offence in the train, this is the work of the government railway police to detect the case. So, our police officers are there, inspectors are there, SIH are there, or constables are there. If such cases are reported in the train or in the platform or in any jurisdiction of the railway, we are ready to take the complaint. After taking the complaint, we will investigate the case. And after investigating the case, we will recover the property. Right. So, our primary work is to prevent the crime as well as to detect the crime.
Right. Thanks a lot, Mr. Mahali, for joining us there. We wish that with you taking over, of course, the crimes and also these petty crimes in railways does in fact go down. Now, the battle against bulging bellies and Chennai seems to be losing this one. If statistics are to be believed, every third person in the city is overweight. Blame it on burgers, pizzas, colas, and even masala dosas dripping with oil and ghee, the new staple diet of many in our city. But even if you're reed thin, well, like me, and a teetotaler, you could still have a fatty liver and high cholesterol. The fat boy slim syndrome isn't what they call it. What can you do to combat cholesterol then? Our health reporter Nithila brings us some possible remedies. Take a look.
Finger licking good, tasty maybe, but this could send your cholesterol levels shooting up like the proverbial Jack's beanstalk. But not all cholesterol is bad. As in the typical Indian film, there's a good guy or HDL and there's the bad guy or LDL. Of course, there are a host of other characters too, like VLDL and triglycerides. But if all that's a little mind-boggling, here's the simple mantra.
As long as we can avoid taking oily food, fatty food, or at least bring it down to the minimum, that will take care of our problems. I think definitely in the last 5 years, you would easily see a 20% increase, if that may be even an underestimate. And we would soon have about 70% of our population having various forms of metabolic syndromes.
If you can't watch your diet or if it's too late, your doctor will prescribe statins to reduce the amount of unhealthy LDL cholesterol in your blood. Researchers now suggest that fast food outlets could also provide statin drugs to cut down the risk. Imagine mix statin with your burger. But doctors say regular healthy meals and exercise is the ultimate solution.
Statins help bring down the cholesterol, and if we can manage with lifestyle changes and dietary advice, that would be best. One of the problems with statins is that it tends to affect the liver, and the liver enzymes tend to go up. And if it's not recognized on time, it can go on to liver damage.
High cholesterol, unlike high sugar levels, seldom present any symptoms, which is why it's considered a silent killer. But the good news is that you can undo the damage if it's early enough. So get that lipid profile done at your neighborhood diagnostic center, work out and eat right. In Chennai, Mithila, NDTV Hindu.
Well, time for us to slip into a very short break. A lot more coming up on the other side. Stay with us.